Hello, PlayStation Universe. Thanks for tuning in to another one of our E3 2016 coverage videos from the city of Los Angeles at E3 2016. I'm Kyle Prahl, this is Adam Byrne, and we're both going to tell you a little bit about the independent game Bound, which is coming exclusively to PlayStation 4, courtesy of developer Plastic and publisher, our good friends, Santa Monica Studios.
You seem quite busy at the moment.
Yes, they do. Finally, coming out of the woodwork a little bit to show a few more games, including God of War.
Hirings and stuff.
Yeah,
4
definitely.
games on the trot. Yeah.
All that stuff. So hopefully you'll be able to get a good sense of what Bound is by the footage we'll add to the video. But I would describe it as a narrative adventure in maybe the ilk of Eco and Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
At a really high level, you're at least... It's an ambiguous story. It's something that needs being told with metaphor.
Yeah.
But at least in the demo sections that we've played, scale and environmental hugeness is certainly a prominent aspect as you're walking through.
I think it's a difficult game to kind of surmise.
It is.
Or even describe in any weight. It's... And that's why you'll see footage alongside this because I think that serves best. But I was really impressed with this game. Really impressed. And I think we were discussing before with the lack of that game company and Genova Chan having left the company and stuff. That, we have the likes
totally.
of Abzu and Bound that are kind of filling that gap for the sort of esoteric, oddly kind of created narrative adventure, as it were.
I think this is definitely cut from the same cloth. I mean, Journey is a perfect example of that. Something where you are a character, you don't know much about that character, and the story unfolds in a very show, not tell sort of way.
Yeah.
In this case, the demo section we played takes place in this huge white tower amidst a really crazy geometric environment.
Yeah, that's constantly in flux and
that's constantly shifting. I mean, I played this section first at PlayStation Experience last year, and I think you played a pretty similar section to what I did. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, but I first want to tell our viewers that I was able to play Bound in virtual reality with PlayStation VR.
Yes.
It was an interesting experience to say the least, but it was incredibly immersive.
Yeah.
It was also the first example of a VR game I've played where the VR perspective is from a fixed camera point away from the character. So it's still a third-person view of the environment. You're still kind of the omnipotent filmer, so to speak, of the action. But just, the magic of being there in virtual reality is so on point with this game. I mean, just simply the difference it makes when you look at the scale of it on a TV. And yeah, you see these big structures in the distance and the way those geometric shapes tumble and unfold. And it's certainly impressive to look at, and it looks nice. But in virtual reality, the scope of that feels real. I'm looking out at that sea of blocks and at that castle far in the background, and I'm
reminding of the journey of the mountain.
Yeah, and I'm feeling overwhelmed by it, as if not even to speak about what Journey in VR would look like, but if you can imagine that, like as if you're looking out at any skyscraper or any building, and it feels that same level of distance and an epic, awe-inspiring scale. So that in and of itself was a huge wrinkle that VR added. But what did you think of just the moment-to-moment gameplay and how it controlled and such?
I thought it controlled really great. I think it's an incredibly graceful game.
Definitely.
I mean, there's always kind of room for error. Some people might not like it because it seems there isn't a lot of challenge. It's more just about the flow of the experience rather than any because there's balance beams and stuff. Like the simple mechanics are you're walking, you're like a dancer, like a ballerina, ostensibly, and she walks incredibly gracefully, and with square she does like a handstand, like a flip, and she can also kind of do other kind of maneuvers like that, and just she moves with she can pirouette and stuff. So it's all very flowy.
Very flowy. Many of those things are of course just for visual flourish. Although there is some very rudimentary fending off of enemies if you roll in a certain way or use certain ballerina moves. What I think, another game that we could use to ground this in context is Papo-Yo, an independent PlayStation title that focused on, to spoil the metaphor a little bit, focused on an abusive alcoholic relationship between a boy and his father. What we know about Bound so far is that it's a woman reliving memories of her childhood, and within the context of Bound and this mysterious ballerina, it's, I guess, a metaphor for the woman's mind and the space in which we're exploring. You do get a small hint and flavor of that in a very brief moment of the demo where you see two children sitting at a table, and there's a father. They're playing chess. The father seems to be sort of commanding them or maybe yelling at them. And it's just a very brief first-person sequence in between that platforming. But it certainly is esoteric, as you mentioned when we were talking about it before the video. So
I think, but just from the outset as well, like graphically, I think I know we talked about the style, but just like the color palette, just the design of the characters and stuff is incredible, really striking.
And I have to say too that the shaping of the environments. I mean that geometric thing, that's astounding just to look at.
Yeah.
And in VR, leaning forward into the environment, doing this against the environments, depending on where your head is placed as the focal point, it's parting around your vision too. Yeah. So I could literally lean into the floor and have it part for me, to the point where I'm like leaning inside the world, the same way I would as I was controlling her.
And something simple as well. Like I mentioned about how graceful the movements are, but like something as simple, and as we talked about the likes of God of War, how a camera shift, something as simple as that can just make the game feel entirely different and like just like a new experience. With this, just the sheer grace of the movements, like the jump isn't just a jump; it's an extended leg jump, as if you were a ballerina.
That's true.
Even going on beams and with your back against the wall, you don't just go against the wall. You kind of like release yourself into the wall and like do it like a turn as you do it and stuff. Just little things, rudimentary things like going up ladders and stuff, and just like making like little. Like onto a balance beam, like how you balance through that. Like just simple things like that just come across really nice and they flow beautifully.
They do. It's a differentiating factor. I mean, I haven't seen any video game character quite like this heroine, this ballerina, because she has those visual flourishes and moves with such grace and elegance. That is riveting in and of itself to look at, let alone when you're in this world with such great scope, and then if you're playing it with PlayStation VR, getting a whole new perspective on the whole thing.
That'd be great. And as well, we got a little touch of the combat, so to speak, where there seemed to be some kind of omnipresent force that tries to wrap around the heroine, and if you hold, I think it's R2, and then you can R2 with any other button will like initiate like a kind of a flow of dance.
Yes.
And like as you do that, you kind of have a.
I couldn't remember that button combo actually.
Yeah, it pretty much just said any button in combination with R2 would kind of create this weird energy flow that will kind of stave off whatever like.
Dark forces. I remember. I think it was like aerial enemies, like almost bat type things that were coming at me.
Yeah, a lot of kind of smoke and stuff, and kind of black, kind of like an Ico with the kind of black, shadow creature type things.
And to speak of Ico, I think when really summing up Bound, it's a game that defies words in some ways, but I also think that it's an easy recommendation for anybody who enjoyed any of that game company's titles. Journey especially, being third person, it bears similarities, as well as the Team Ico catalog, Shadow of the Colossus, and what
absolutely,
have you.
I can't recommend it highly enough. I was really not so much surprised because when I saw it had that certain visual style that I was like, I'm going to enjoy this, but I think it's on course for a release later this year, and it's definitely one to look out for.
Great, can't wait to play it in its full form. Thanks for watching our video, our impressions of Bound. Definitely check it out. I would hope that it's going to come to PlayStation Plus in some fashion,
Wouldn't
or
be surprised,
get a greater amount of coverage in the months ahead. We're looking forward to playing the full version. So, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for all of our E3 2016 coverage throughout the week. We'll have more videos, more articles, more social pictures and feeds straight from the show floor to share with you.
You name it, we have it.
Thanks for checking us out.